these are my innermost thoughts. No, it's a big deal. It's a big deal. I'm so grateful.
Christine Brown just hit #1 on Amazon's bestseller list, and the timing couldn't be more perfect. While Kody's scrambling for relevance with manufactured apology tours and desperate talk of fifth wives, his ex-wife is dominating the literary charts with raw, unfiltered truth. The financial records are public, the sales figures are climbing, and somewhere in Flagstaff, you can practically hear the sound of a narcissist's ego imploding.
Happy book release day!
Oh my gosh, today's the day! So exciting.
Her Access Hollywood interview dropped yesterday, and the woman conducting it asked every question we've been dying to hear answered. Christine wasn't just candid, she was surgical. Every response felt like another nail in the coffin of Kody's carefully constructed public image. The interviewer clearly came prepared, and Christine met that energy with the kind of straightforward honesty that makes bestsellers out of memoirs.
It just felt really, really good. I feel like I finally have a voice.
What struck me most wasn't just what Christine revealed, but how she revealed it. Gone is the uncertain plural wife, walking on eggshells around her husband's fragile masculinity. This is a woman who's found her voice, claimed her power, and turned her survival story into cold hard cash. The book sales don't lie, and neither does the confidence radiating from every answer she gave.
Do you feel free?
Yes, yeah. Yeah, writing it I felt free, and then when I did the audible version, the audio version, again I was like, oh my God.
The numbers tell a story. Kody never wanted written. While he's reduced to manufacturing drama for storylines, Christine's authentic journey is resonating with thousands of readers willing to pay for her truth. That's got to sting for a man whose entire identity revolved around controlling the narrative, especially when the narrative is now generating actual wealth for his ex-wife, not him. But here's what really has to be eating at Kody's core. Christine's success proves everything he claimed about her was wrong. She wasn't the problem wife who needed constant management. She wasn't the financial burden he made her feel like for years. She was a best-selling author waiting for the freedom to tell her story. Every copy sold is a reminder that his version of events was manipulation, not reality. The timing of this success, right as the new season launches with his desperate apology tour, reads like poetic justice. Christine's building an empire on truth, while Kody's building storylines on lies. Guess which one the market is buying? The Access Hollywood interview made it crystal clear that Christine sees right through his upcoming television performance, and now millions of readers are getting the real story behind those crocodile tears he's about to shed on camera. But the real bombshell hiding in Christine's media appearances isn't just her success, it's her complete dismantling of everything Kody's about to try selling to viewers. She's not just ahead of his game, she's playing an entirely different sport while he's still fumbling with the rules of his own manipulation playbook. The book isn't just flying off virtual shelves because Christine escaped polygamy. Thousands of women have done that. What's creating this bestseller phenomenon is how she dissects the financial manipulation that happened right under everyone's noses for over a decade. Women who've balanced household budgets while someone else controlled the purse strings are seeing their own experiences reflected in her story, and that recognition is powerful enough to drive sales through the roof. Christine lays bare the economic abuse that masqueraded as spiritual leadership. She documents how financial decisions were made without her input, how money disappeared into priorities that never included her or her children, and how questioning those choices was framed as lacking faith, rather than basic financial literacy. Every woman who's ever watched household income vanish while being told not to worry about the details is finding validation in these pages. The memoir reveals something crucial that reality television never could capture: the daily erosion of financial security disguised as religious devotion. Christine writes about watching resources flow toward Kody and Robin's priorities while her own children's needs took a back seat. She describes the gaslighting that accompanied these decisions, how asking for transparency was twisted into accusations of disloyalty or faithlessness. But what's really resonating with readers is how she connects these individual experiences to the broader system of control. The book doesn't just chronicle her personal suffering, it exposes the mechanics of how spiritual authority becomes financial manipulation. Women are recognizing patterns they've lived through in their own marriages, their own families, their own lives where someone else's agenda masqueraded as divine will. Christine's candor about the naive woman she used to be is particularly powerful. She doesn't pretend she was secretly brilliant all along or that she saw through every manipulation in real time. She admits to the confusion, the self-doubt, the desperate attempts to make sense of a system designed to keep her off balance. That honesty is what's driving the emotional connection readers are forming with her story. The memoir succeeds because it translates the unique experience of polygamous abuse into universal themes of financial control, emotional manipulation, and the slow awakening to one's own worth. Christine isn't just telling her story, she's giving language to experiences millions of women have lived but couldn't quite name. That's the kind of truth that creates bestsellers and transforms lives. And somewhere in Flagstaff, Kody's watching those sales figures climb while realizing his own version of events is being systematically dismantled, one 5-star review at a time. The woman he spent years convincing she was the problem is now profiting from exposing who the real problem always was. Christine didn't just drop hints about Kody's upcoming apology performance, she completely pulled back the curtain on his entire reputation rehabilitation strategy. In her Access Hollywood interview, she delivered the most devastating analysis of manipulative behavior disguised as accountability that we've ever heard from a Sister Wives family member. Her assessment was clinical, precise, and absolutely brutal in its accuracy. The upcoming season apparently features Kody making rounds to various family members, offering what producers are framing as heartfelt apologies for years of neglect and emotional damage. But Christine sees right through the performance, and her analysis reveals the calculating mind of a narcissist, desperately trying to salvage his public image. She told the interviewer that these apologies aren't for the people receiving them, they're for Kody himself, designed to meet his own emotional needs rather than repair actual relationships. What makes Christine's insight so devastating is her understanding of Kody's psychological patterns after decades of marriage. She recognizes that his apology tour isn't driven by genuine remorse or desire for reconciliation. Instead, it's strategic damage control designed to rehabilitate his reputation before the court of public opinion. Every tearful moment, every seemingly vulnerable confession, every apparent breakthrough, Christine sees it as performance art designed to serve Kody's need to be perceived as the misunderstood patriarch rather than the neglectful father his actions prove him to be. The timing of this apology tour, coinciding with Christine's best-selling memoir that exposes his true character, isn't coincidental. Christine understands that Kody's scrambling to get ahead of the narrative her book is creating. While she's documenting years of financial manipulation and emotional abuse, he's preparing television moments designed to suggest he's changed, grown, and deserves forgiveness. But Christine's not buying what he's selling, and her interview makes it clear she sees these efforts as just another layer of manipulation. Her most powerful statement about his upcoming apologies was devastatingly simple. When he actually fixes his relationships with his children through consistent action rather than grand gestures, then she'll consider accepting his words as genuine. Until then, she recognizes his apologies for what they are: empty performances designed to serve his own emotional needs rather than heal the damage he's caused to others. Christine's analysis reveals something crucial about narcissistic behavior patterns that viewers need to understand. The apology tour isn't about accountability, it's about control. By appearing vulnerable and remorseful on television, Kody attempts to reclaim narrative control and position himself as the victim of misunderstanding rather than the architect of family dysfunction. Christine sees through this strategy because she lived with the man behind the performance for decades. The memoir provides context that makes these upcoming apologies even more transparent. Christine documents how Kody consistently prioritized his image over his children's emotional needs, how he manipulated situations to avoid genuine accountability, and how he weaponized spiritual authority to deflect criticism. Now viewers will watch his apology tour with Christine's insider knowledge of his psychological patterns, making every crocodile tear and manufactured breakthrough moment ring hollow. But what's coming next in terms of his specific strategies will shock you even more than these empty apologies. Christine's memoir and recent interview reveal the sophisticated psychological manipulation system Kody built to control not just his family's behavior, but their entire perception of reality. For over a decade, viewers watched what they thought was organic family dysfunction, never realizing they were witnessing a masterclass in narcissistic control, wrapped in the language of spiritual leadership. Christine's book exposes how every family meeting, every talking head interview, every apparent breakthrough was carefully orchestrated to protect Kody's image, rather than address genuine problems. The control system began with what Christine calls loyalty demands, but these weren't about family unity or religious devotion. They were about information management. Kody didn't start demanding absolute loyalty from family members until they began speaking truthfully about his behavior. As long as everyone maintained the fiction that he was a devoted father and spiritual leader, he remained the benevolent patriarch. The moment anyone questioned his actions or priorities, suddenly loyalty became the highest virtue and questioning became betrayal of family values. Christine documents how this manifested in their reality television appearances. Family members weren't just encouraged to present Kody positively, they were coached on specific talking points, designed to deflect criticism and maintain his public image. Conversations about his absence from children's lives were reframed as discussions about the challenges of plural marriage. His financial decisions weren't questioned because questioning the priesthood holder's judgment was presented as lacking faith. Every potential criticism was neutralized before it could gain traction. The most insidious aspect of Kody's control system was how he weaponized their religious beliefs to shut down accountability. When children expressed hurt over his absence, they were told they needed to work on forgiveness rather than him needing to work on presence. When wives questioned financial decisions, they were counseled about trusting their priesthood leader rather than him needing to provide transparency. Christine reveals how their faith became a tool for avoiding responsibility rather than a framework for ethical behavior. But Kody's manipulation extended beyond just controlling current narratives. He actively rewrote family history to serve his image. Christine describes how events she lived through were later presented completely differently in family discussions and television interviews. Her own memories were questioned, her perceptions were dismissed, and gradually she began doubting her own experiences because they didn't align with the official family version of events. The loyalty demands intensified as family members began leaving because Kody understood that every departure threatened to expose the reality behind his carefully maintained image. Each person who left became a potential truth teller, someone who might reveal the gap between his public persona and private behavior. That's why the demands for loyalty became increasingly desperate and controlling as the family structure began collapsing. Christine's memoir reveals how exhausting it became to maintain the fiction of Kody as a devoted father and husband when the reality was neglect and emotional manipulation. She describes the cognitive dissonance of defending someone on television whose actual behavior contradicted everything she was saying about him. Eventually, maintaining his image became more important to him than maintaining actual relationships with his children. But the real shock comes when you realize how many people he's systematically removed from their lives to protect this carefully constructed narrative. In the epilogue of Christine's memoir, she drops a bombshell that reveals just how far Kody and Robyn will go to control their narrative. They completely severed ties with Mykelti, the woman who helped raise their children for years. This isn't just family drama, it's a calculated elimination of anyone who might possess inconvenient truths about their household dynamics. Mykelti wasn't just cut off, she was erased from their lives the moment she became a potential threat to their carefully managed image. Mykelti occupied a unique position in the Brown family ecosystem. She wasn't just occasional childcare, she was integral to Robyn's children's daily lives, helping raise them while Robyn navigated the complexities of plural marriage. Christine reveals that while Robyn never used the other sister wives for childcare, she regularly relied on Mykelti and her own sisters to handle her children's needs. This created a situation where Mykelti witnessed intimate family dynamics that never made it to television cameras. The severance happened after something occurred at a funeral. Christine doesn't specify exactly what, but the implications are clear. Mykelti said or did something that crossed the invisible line. Kody and Robyn have drawn around acceptable truth-telling. In their world, anyone who speaks about their family dynamics, even truthfully, becomes a liability that must be eliminated. Mykelti's crime wasn't lying about them, it was potentially telling the truth about them. What makes this severance particularly cruel is the impact on the children Mykelti helped raise. These weren't just employment arrangements, these were genuine relationships built over years of daily interaction. Children don't understand why someone who helped care for them suddenly disappears from their lives because their parents decided that person knew too much. Christine's heartbreak over her own children losing their relationship with Kody pales in comparison to the casual cruelty of cutting children off from someone who genuinely cared for them. Mykelti's Patreon account appears to be what pushed Kody and Robyn over the edge. The platform suggests she might be sharing insights about her time with their family, and in Kody's mind, anyone who profits from discussing their family dynamics is automatically disparaging them, even if they're telling the truth. He can't distinguish between actual disparagement and honest accounts of his behavior because in his narcissistic worldview, any truth that hurts his image is an attack rather than accountability. This pattern of eliminating truth-tellers extends beyond just Mykelti. Christine documents how Kody systematically removed anyone from their lives who might question his authority or expose his behavior. Extended family members, longtime friends, even professionals who worked with their family. Anyone who witnessed the gap between Kody's public persona and private behavior eventually found themselves cut off if they showed signs of speaking truthfully about their experiences. The Mykelti situation reveals the paranoid control that now governs Kody and Robyn's household. They've created an environment where loyalty isn't measured by love or genuine relationship, it's measured by willingness to maintain their preferred version of reality. Anyone who threatens that narrative, even people who genuinely care about their children, gets eliminated without consideration for the collateral damage to family relationships. But their attempts to control who can speak about them extend far beyond just personal relationships. They've been working behind the scenes to manipulate much more powerful institutions. Picture this scene. Kody and Robyn sitting across from AUB leadership at what they hoped would be their triumphant return dinner, only to discover that church elders see right through their desperate reputation rehabilitation attempts. According to insider information Christine references, this meeting happened around the time multiple wives were leaving, and it reveals just how calculated Kody and Robin's recent behavior really is. They weren't just trying to salvage their television careers, they were attempting to manipulate their way back into institutional power. The meeting centered around Kody and Robin's desire to return to good standing with the Apostolic United Brethren, but their motivations were layered with self-serving agenda items that made church leadership skeptical. Robin apparently presented herself as the faithful plural wife who still believed in the principles of polygamy, desperately wanting her family to return to proper religious standing. She painted their current situation as temporary rebellion that could be corrected through proper church guidance, positioning herself as the spiritual anchor trying to bring her wayward husband back to righteousness. But Kody's ambitions extended far beyond simple membership restoration. Sources indicate he inquired about establishing his own AUB branch in Arizona, essentially asking permission to become a religious leader himself. The audacity of this request reveals everything about Kody's psychological makeup. Even while seeking forgiveness for abandoning his plural marriage, he was simultaneously positioning himself for increased authority and control. He wanted to transform from failed polygamist to religious leader, bypassing accountability entirely. Church leadership's response was swift and brutal in its honesty. They told Kody directly that they viewed him as someone who had abandoned his wives and family responsibilities. More damning, they questioned whether his desire to return was genuine or simply another performance designed to serve his image. Multiple council members expressed concerns about Kody's narcissistic tendencies, noting that some church leaders share similar personality traits and would likely clash with his need for constant validation and control. The conversation revealed that Kody's reputation within AUB circles is far worse than viewers might realize. Church leadership sees him as a hypocrite who has spent years living outside their rules while maintaining the facade of religious devotion for television cameras. His public behavior, his treatment of his wives, and his neglect of his children have all been noticed and judged by the very people he's now trying to impress. Robin's insistence that polygamy remain part of their marriage creates a complex dynamic that church leaders find suspicious. They recognize that she's been a terrible sister wife, who actively worked to exclude other wives rather than embrace plural marriage principles. Her sudden desire for another wife raises questions about whether she's genuinely committed to polygamous principles or simply trying to manipulate her way back into social acceptance within their religious community. The church's rejection of Kody's branch proposal wasn't just about his personal failings, it was about practical reality. He lacks the followers, the credibility, and the genuine spiritual authority necessary to lead any religious community. His attempt to leverage his television fame into religious leadership revealed how completely he misunderstands both his own reputation and the nature of spiritual authority. But the most devastating revelation about their church meeting exposes the real driving force behind all their recent desperate moves. Christine's shock at hearing Kody and Robin discuss adding a fifth wife wasn't just surprise. It was the recognition of someone watching a master manipulator shift strategies in real time. Her Access Hollywood reaction of "that can't be real, none of that can be real" reveals someone who's learned to question everything Kody does, because she's witnessed firsthand how he weaponizes relationships for personal gain. The fifth wife conversation isn't happening in a vacuum, it's the culmination of years of calculated moves designed to serve multiple agendas simultaneously. The insider information about their church meeting reveals the real complexity behind this fifth wife discussion. Robin's marriage agreement with Kody was explicitly polygamous. She signed up to be a plural wife, not a monogamous spouse. Despite being terrible at sharing and actively working to exclude other wives, Robin apparently still believes her spiritual salvation depends on participating in plural marriage. This creates a psychological trap where she needs another wife to validate her religious identity, even though she's proven incapable of genuine sister-wife relationships. But here's where the manipulation becomes truly sophisticated. Kody can't acquire another wife through church channels while he's out of good standing with AUB leadership. The insider's account reveals that church dances, activities, and social gatherings are where polygamous men typically meet potential wives. But the Brown family currently lacks the recommends necessary to participate in these events. They're spiritually homeless, locked out of the very system they need to access if they want to add another family member. This creates a scenario where Kody's fifth wife talk serves multiple purposes without requiring actual commitment. He can appear spiritually motivated to church leadership while generating television content for the show. He can satisfy Robin's religious concerns while maintaining plausible deniability about serious intent. Most importantly, he can test public reaction and family dynamics without the messy reality of actually managing another relationship. Christine's assessment that this might all be performance for television ratings reveals her sophisticated understanding of Kody's psychological patterns. She lived through years of him stringing along multiple wives for show content, while privately resenting the actual responsibilities of plural marriage. She watched him maintain the fiction of spiritual devotion while actively working to eliminate wives who demanded genuine partnership. Her skepticism about his fifth wife intentions comes from intimate knowledge of his capacity for using relationships as props. The timing of these discussions, coinciding with his apology tour and Christine's best-selling memoir, suggests strategic calculation rather than spiritual conviction. Kody needs storylines to maintain television relevance, especially as his original family structure completely collapsed. Talking about adding wives generates viewer interest without requiring him to actually demonstrate the emotional maturity necessary for healthy relationships. Robyn's role in these discussions is particularly complex because she simultaneously wants polygamy in theory, while being incapable of practicing it successfully. Her jealousy, possessiveness, and need for exclusive access to Kody's attention directly contradict plural marriage principles. Yet she apparently still believes her salvation depends on participating in this lifestyle, creating an internal contradiction that makes her both advocate for and sabotage of additional wives. Christine's ultimate assessment, "I don't know if it's real," captures the exhaustion of trying to discern genuine intention from calculated performance in Kody's behavior. But understanding why Christine is still learning to recognize these patterns requires examining her ongoing journey out of lifelong indoctrination. Christine's journey out of polygamous indoctrination isn't happening on television timelines. It's unfolding according to the slow, painful rhythm of cult recovery that can take decades to complete. Her memoir reveals a woman courageously dismantling beliefs that were woven into her identity from childhood, but she's still in the early stages of recognizing how deeply the system shaped her understanding of relationships, authority, and her own worth. The process is messy, non-linear, and requires immense patience from both Christine herself and those watching her growth. The Access Hollywood interview showcased Christine's growing ability to identify Kody's manipulation tactics, but it also revealed areas where her thinking remains influenced by cult conditioning. She can clearly articulate how Kody weaponized spiritual authority to avoid accountability, yet she stops short of condemning polygamy itself as inherently abusive. This isn't hypocrisy or denial. It's the natural progression of someone carefully untangling decades of religious programming while trying to maintain relationships with family members still embedded in the system. Christine's book documents the toxic beliefs she's actively working to unravel, the teaching that women must endure to the end regardless of circumstances, the doctrine that suffering proves God's love, and the expectation that wives should resolve all jealousy and relationship problems through personal spiritual work rather than demanding partner accountability. She writes about recognizing these teachings as psychologically damaging, but decades of conditioning don't disappear overnight just because someone intellectually understands they were harmful. The complexity of her situation becomes more apparent when you consider her family connections. Christine has siblings, sisters, and extended family members still practicing polygamy, and her father remains connected to the church despite not being polygamous himself. Completely condemning the system would mean potentially severing relationships with people she genuinely loves and who haven't reached their own awakening yet. This creates a delicate balance between personal healing and family preservation that influences how publicly she can critique the broader system. Her naivety about manipulation tactics, which becomes apparent in both her memoir and interviews, isn't a character flaw. It's evidence of how successfully the cult system prepared her to be victimized. Polygamous communities deliberately raise women to be trusting, submissive, and focused on others' needs rather than their own. They teach girls to interpret male authority as divine guidance and to blame themselves when relationships fail. Unlearning these patterns requires rebuilding fundamental concepts about relationships, power, and personal worth. The cult recovery process is further complicated by having lived her deprogramming journey on national television. Christine had to navigate her awakening while cameras documented every stage of confusion, growth, and setback. She's simultaneously trying to heal from spiritual abuse while managing public perception and maintaining television storylines. Most cult survivors get to process their recovery privately. Christine has done it under scrutiny that adds additional pressure to her healing journey. What makes Christine's progress particularly remarkable is her growing ability to trust her own perceptions after decades of being taught to doubt them. The cult system trained her to dismiss her instincts, question her memories, and defer to male authority figures even when their behavior contradicted their stated beliefs. Her confident assessment of Kody's apology tour as manipulation rather than genuine remorse shows someone learning to trust her own judgment again. But recognizing individual manipulation is just the first step in a much larger awakening about the institutional systems that enabled it. Christine's bestseller success represents the complete inversion of everything Kody spent over a decade building, and his nuclear reaction isn't just about book sales, it's about watching his carefully constructed empire of control collapse in real time. For years, he maintained power through information management, narrative control, and financial manipulation. Now his ex-wife is turning those very experiences into profit, while he's reduced to manufacturing storylines about apologies and fifth wives just to remain television relevant. The psychological impact on a narcissist of this magnitude cannot be overstated. Kody built his entire identity around being the central figure in his family's story, the patriarch whose decisions shaped everyone's lives, the spiritual leader whose authority went unquestioned. Christine's memoir doesn't just challenge that narrative, it completely dismantles it by documenting the gap between his self-perception and his actual behavior. Every 5-star review is another confirmation that his version of events was manipulation rather than reality. What makes Christine's success particularly devastating for Kody is how it exposes the hollowness of his threats and punishments. For years, he maintained control through the implied threat that challenging his authority would result in exclusion, financial hardship, and social isolation. He positioned himself as the source of security and stability, suggesting that wives and children needed him more than he needed them. Christine's thriving independence proves those threats were empty manipulations designed to prevent exactly what's happening now. The financial aspect adds another layer of psychological torture for someone as money-obsessed as Kody has proven himself to be. While he scrambles to maintain television relevance and generates storylines through manufactured drama, Christine is building genuine wealth from her authentic story. She's not just surviving without him, she's prospering, and that prosperity comes from telling the truth about their relationship rather than maintaining his preferred fiction. The timing of Christine's success coinciding with Kody's desperate reputation rehabilitation attempts creates a perfect storm of narcissistic injury. Just as he's trying to convince viewers he's changed, grown, and deserves forgiveness, Christine's memoir is providing detailed documentation of his consistent patterns of selfishness, neglect, and emotional abuse. His apology tour becomes transparent performance art when readers can compare his television remorse with Christine's documented evidence of his actual behavior. But perhaps most damaging to Kody's psyche is how Christine's success validates everything he tried to convince her wasn't true. He spent years making her feel like the problem wife who caused family discord through her unreasonable expectations. He positioned her complaints about his behavior as evidence of her spiritual failings rather than his relationship failures. Now thousands of readers are connecting with her story, confirming that her perceptions were accurate and her expectations were reasonable. Christine's bestseller status also represents the loss of Kody's most powerful weapon, the ability to define reality for his family members. He can no longer gaslight his children about what really happened in their household because Christine has documented those experiences for public consumption. He can't rewrite family history to serve his image because Christine's version is now the official record, backed by sales figures and reader testimonials that validate her truth. The empire he built on controlling information, managing narratives, and manipulating family dynamics is crumbling because one woman found the courage to tell her story honestly, and that's just the beginning of his reckoning. Christine's bestseller triumph isn't just a personal victory, it's the opening salvo in what promises to be a complete transformation of how the Brown family story gets told. For over a decade, Kody controlled the narrative through television editing, family loyalty demands, and strategic information management. Now that control has shifted permanently to the people who actually lived the experiences he spent years misrepresenting, and Christine's success proves there's a massive audience hungry for authentic truth over manufactured drama. The psychological warfare is just beginning, because Christine's memoir represents proof of concept for what happens when sister wives' family members choose honesty over image protection. Other family members are watching her sales figures, seeing her media appearances, and witnessing how the public responds to genuine transparency rather than scripted talking points. Christine has shown them there's both financial reward and emotional liberation in telling their real stories rather than maintaining Kody's preferred fiction. What terrifies Kody most isn't Christine's current success, it's the precedent she's established for future revelations. Janelle has her own story to tell about financial manipulation and emotional neglect. The older children have 18 years of experiences watching their father prioritize image over genuine relationships. Even Robin possesses information about family dynamics that could completely destroy Kody's remaining credibility if she ever chooses truth over loyalty. Christine's bestseller proves there's a market for authentic sister-wives experiences. The power dynamic has shifted so fundamentally that Kody's upcoming apology tour becomes an exercise in futility before it even begins. Viewers will watch his manufactured remorse while carrying Christine's detailed documentation of his actual behavior patterns. Every tearful confession will ring hollow because readers now understand the sophisticated manipulation tactics he's employed for years. His television performance can't compete with Christine's written evidence. But Christine's success also represents something deeper than just narrative control. It's proof that leaving Kody's system leads to prosperity rather than punishment. For years, he maintained power through the implied threat that challenging his authority would result in hardship and isolation. Christine's thriving independence, best-selling success, and growing media platform prove those threats were empty manipulations designed to prevent exactly what she's accomplished. The financial implications extend beyond just Christine's book sales. Her success opens doors for speaking engagements, additional publishing opportunities, and media projects that could generate substantial long-term income. Meanwhile, Kody's television relevance depends on manufactured storylines and fake apologies that even casual viewers are beginning to recognize as performance art. Christine's building a sustainable career on authentic truth while Kody's reduced to increasingly desperate attempts at maintaining attention. The real reckoning approaches as more family members recognize that their authentic stories have market value independent of Kody's narrative control. Christine has proven that truth-telling leads to empowerment rather than punishment, financial success rather than hardship, and genuine connection with audiences rather than scripted performances. She's shown them the path out of his psychological prison, and that path leads to bestseller lists rather than the isolation he always threatened. The empire built on controlling information and managing family narratives is crumbling one authentic story at a time. Christine's nuclear success has lit the fuse, and something tells me the next round of revelations will make her best-selling memoir look like just the opening chapter of this family's real story, finally being told. What do you think will crack first? Kody's remaining facade of victimhood, or his grip on the family members still protecting his image? Which Brown family revelation are you most anticipating as this power shift continues? Drop your predictions below. Tap like, hit subscribe, keep notifications on for the latest Sister Wives intelligence, and remember, a fresh video is already queued up, and something tells me the next round of Brown family drama will be even more explosive than Christine's best-selling bombshells.